Hello YouTube, we are on the bed in my room, which sounds really dodgy, but trust me, it isn't. So, yeah, quick little spotlight. Actually, it's going to be quite a long video. So, it's going to be coming at you in, I don't know, as many parts as it takes. But this is a little video on the Raspberry Pi Model B. Just pull that out. There we go. So what is this? Many of you think, who haven't seen one of these before, will think, well, it just looks like a add-on for one of your PCs. No. In fact, you're wrong. It is a PC. Yes. This is a tiny little credit card sized computer. I mean, if I slot it in my hand, get in my hand, you fucking, there we go. That's about as big as it is. It's really, really, really tiny. And what it was made for was to address the growing or shrinking number of children who were getting less and less interested in programming. So as you probably guessed, this is a programming style PC, and it runs off one of these, micro SD card. Sorry. So I won't be going over how to set one of these up because I've already have set it up, but there is a really good video from explainingcomputers.com. If you search for just search for Raspberry Pi and then search for how to set up a Raspberry Pi from Explaining Computers, he does a really really good video on it. That's where I learned to set this up. So this, as you see here, is a Model B Plus. Now there are three types of Raspberry Pis. Well, two types are available. One of them is no longer with us, unfortunately. Let's have a moment of silence. Okay, that's enough. No one really cares about it. So you had the Model A, Model B, and the Model B Plus. This is the latest one, as you can see, 2014. This was literally released, I'm trying to think, it was 2 or 3 months ago. And, yeah, so the Model A was basic as hell. I can't remember the stats properly. I'm sure you'll want to go and find out. Model B, again, was slightly more basic than this, but most of the hardware was the same, and obviously got the B+. So what have we got on here? We've got 40 GPIO pins. Now, in the earlier model, you only had 26, but GPIO stands for General Purpose Input Output, I think, if I'm correct. And those allow you to control robots and little things and hack things with it. So it's a very good hacky PC. You've got 4 USB ports, which you will need. You will need these. I've never needed USB more. I think these are USB 2.0 ports, and Ethernet, whatever cable plug-in. These come with every single model of Pi. I think that's a 3.5mm headphone jack. In fact, I will check right now because I have them. Yeah, here we go. So let's have a look. And it is. It's a 3.5mm headphone jack. So you can either use it as a headphone jack or, I presume, to plug into something. Right here, we've got a camera output input thingy. So you'd have like a ribbon connector because it has a camera which you can buy for it. HDMI out, which is the only method of putting it onto a screen on this. Earlier models had composite, but because they put 40 pins here, they've had to get rid of the space. The power lead, which is a micro USB thing. Most Samsung and Android phones use these, so if you're running Android, good for you. If you're running iPhone, haha, you got to buy a new one. I think this is the processor and something else. That is for a display, because you can actually mount touchscreens onto this. On the bottom, we haven't got anything really interesting apart from this little micro USB port. Not micro USB, micro SD card. As the early models had normal SD cards. So this is very compact. So, before we go into price, stats. So, as I said before, 40 GPIO pins, USB 2.0, Ethernet 100 megabytes, I believe. So the processor is a 700 megahertz I think it says Samsung on it. There you go, Samsung. Now, I don't know if that's the processor slash CPU or whatever. If that's the processor slash CPU, so it's one of those two, but it's 700 megahertz processor. This model is overclocked, so I've overclocked it to 800 megahertz. And many of you are thinking 800 megahertz, 700 megahertz, that's shite, but for a computer of this size, it's actually pretty damn good. And it's more than enough to run its built-in operating system. It's overclock. You can overclock it to, I think it's 1000 megahertz, which is 1 gigahertz, obviously. So, I think you can get a gigabyte of RAM. So a gigahertz isn't that bad. Of course, though, you need a fan, and a powerful fan, because this will just melt. So, I'm trying to think of the other thing it has. 512 megabytes of RAM, which again isn't much. Half a gig of RAM is pretty shit, but again, it's more than enough to run the the operating systems that comes with it. Can't think of anything else. Oh yeah, it's only compatible with certain Linux operating systems. Most of these are very slimlined, stripped down for this. Because if you try to boot Ubuntu or, in this case, Debian onto this, it would kill it. Or it would just run so slow you couldn't get anything done. Now this doesn't run very fast, even when I've overclocked it to 800 megahertz. Oh yeah, before I go any further, the highest you can overclock this to, just as it is 800 megahertz. Any higher and you will need at least a heatsink. Because either this or that, I think it's actually that as the CPU, but it'll just melt onto a Surface board and kill it. So, what the hell? Oh, right, yeah, so you can attach it. Okay. So that's about all it is for the overview. So I'm going to plug it in, and in part 2, you'll see me booting up the Pi, and showing you, well, basically giving you a quick guide on how to install the recommended software of Raspbian onto a SD card, or an SD card.